The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and Elena Harker knew her cover was about to be blown. She stood frozen in the center of the Bellissimo's grand dining hall, tray trembling in her hands, as 300 pairs of eyes turned toward her. The golden liquid spread across the white marble like spilled secrets, creeping toward the polished shoes of the one man she'd been specifically told to avoid tonight, Vincent Corleone. His steel-gray eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment that stretched like eternity, Elena forgot how to breathe. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s, maybe, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Renaissance paintings. Not in the smoke-filled backrooms where men like him made people disappear. Just a waitress, he murmured, loud enough for his table to hear. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Can't even hold a tray steady. The laughter that followed was polite, controlled, the kind that comes from people who know better than to laugh too hard at a powerful man's jokes. But Elena heard the dismissal in his voice, saw the way he'd already turned back to his companions, writing her off as invisible, insignificant. Perfect. Hey there, beautiful souls. Before we dive deeper into Elena's dangerous world, I want to know, where are you watching from? Are you cozy at home, on a lunch break, or maybe sneaking this video in at work? Drop your location in the comments below. And listen, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button because trust me, you don't want to miss where this story is going. This tale of deception, power, and a waitress, who's so much more than she seems is, about to take you on a ride you won't forget. Now, back to Elena, because that shattered glass? That was no accident. She'd been working at Bellissimo for exactly 43 days, long enough to memorize the rotation of security guards, the blind spots in the camera coverage, and which tables the real players sat at, short enough that nobody looked at her twice. That was the game. Blend in. Become wallpaper. Let the men in their $1,000 suits and the women dripping in diamonds talk freely around her because, after all, she was just a waitress. Elena bent down to collect the shattered glass, her honey blonde hair falling forward to hide her face. Her fingers moved quickly, expertly, palming the tiny recording device that had fallen from the underside of Corleone's table, the real reason she'd accidentally dropped the tray. Careful, sweetheart. A hand gripped her elbow, yanking her upward. Elena found herself staring into the face of a man built like a brick wall wearing an expensive suit. Corleone's head of security, Dante Wick. She'd studied his file. Ex-military. Kill count. Classified. Loyalty to Corleone. Absolute. Sorry, sir. Elena kept her voice soft, apologetic, with just a hint of an Eastern European accent she'd perfected over years of practice. I am so clumsy tonight. Dante's eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat, Elena wondered if he could see through her, past the brown contact lenses hiding her real eye color, past the carefully applied makeup that made her look younger and softer, past the persona she'd constructed so carefully. Then Corleone's voice cut through the tension. Wick. Leave her. She's clearly out of her depth here. The dismissal stung more than it should have. Elena had been called worse things, been underestimated by worse men. But something about Vincent Corleone's casual contempt made heat rise in her chest, the dangerous kind of heat that could blow a cover. She forced herself to bob her head submissively and hurry toward the kitchen, feeling Dante's suspicious gaze burning into her back with every step. The kitchen was chaos, a symphony of shouting chefs, clanging pots, and hissing steam. Elena navigated through it with practiced ease, slipping into the employee restroom and locking the door behind her. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. Not from fear, she'd lost the capacity for that particular emotion somewhere around her third kill, but from adrenaline. The device she'd retrieved was still warm, its tiny LED blinking green. Active recording. Mission successful. Elena's reflection stared back at her from the mirror, a pretty girl in a cheap uniform, the kind of woman men like Corleone look through rather than at. She'd spent 6 weeks building this cover, living in a cramped studio apartment, serving pasta and fake smiles to monsters in Armani. And tonight, she'd gotten exactly what she came for. Her phone buzzed. A single message, no sender ID, extraction in 20 minutes. North exit. Elena deleted the message and slipped the recording device into the hidden pocket sewn into her uniform's waistband. 20 minutes. She just had to survive 20 more minutes, and then she could disappear into the night, another ghost in a city full of them. But as she reached for the door handle, a sound made her freeze. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Stopping right outside the bathroom door. Elena Harker. The voice was muffled but unmistakable. Dante Wick. I know you're in there. And I know you're not who you say you are. Elena's mind raced through her options. The bathroom had no windows, no second exit. Her gun was in her locker, stupid, careless, but she couldn't exactly serve dinner with a Glock strapped to her thigh. She had a knife in her boot, but bringing a knife to what would inevitably become a gunfight was suicide. You have 5 seconds to open this door, Dante continued, his voice eerily calm. Or I'm coming in, and trust me, you don't want that. Elena's hand moved to her boot, fingers closing around the knife's handle. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her breathing remained controlled. Years of training had taught her that panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. 5, 4, 3. The door exploded inward with a thunderous crack, but Elena was already moving. What happens when Elena's cover is blown? How will she escape Dante Wick? And what did Vincent Corleone mean when he said she was out of her depth? If you're hooked and need to know what happens next, drop a comment below telling me, do you think Elena will make it out alive, or is this the end of her mission? Your theories fuel these stories, so don't be shy. Elena twisted sideways as the door splintered, using the momentum to drive her shoulder into Dante's midsection. 220 pounds of muscle barely budged, but it bought her a half second, enough to slip past him into the narrow hallway. Lock down the building. Dante's voice boomed behind her. Nobody leaves. Elena ran, her server shoes slapping against the tile floor. The recording device felt like it was burning through her uniform. 20 minutes until extraction had just become 20 seconds until capture. She burst through the kitchen doors, nearly colliding with a sous chef carrying a tray of flaming desserts. The flames cast dancing shadows across the stainless steel surfaces, and Elena saw her opportunity. She grabbed her industrial-sized bag of flour from the prep station and hurled it at the stove's open flame. The explosion of white powder created instant chaos, chefs shouting, coughing, stumbling blindly. Elena used the cover to sprint toward the loading dock exit, her training kicking in with crystalline clarity. 3 steps to the door. 2. 1. A hand shot out from nowhere, catching her wrist in an iron grip. But it wasn't Dante. Vincent Corleone stood between her and freedom, his grey eyes now fully focused on her in a way they hadn't been before. Up close, she could see a thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, a slight crookedness to his nose that suggested it had been broken at least once. This wasn't just some spoiled Mafia prince. This was a man who'd done his own violence. You move well for just a waitress, he said softly, dangerously. Who sent you? Dmitri. The Yakuza. Or are you working for the feds? Elena's mind calculated trajectories, escape routes, probability of survival. Her knife was still in her boot, but Corleone's other hand rested casually on his hip, right where a concealed weapon would be. If she went for her blade, he'd shoot her before it cleared leather. Behind them, Dante emerged from the flower cloud chaos, gun drawn. Elena did the only thing that made sense in that moment. She smiled. Not the soft, apologetic smile of Elena Harker, immigrant waitress, but the smile of someone who'd been playing a role so long she'd almost forgotten what her real face looked like. You want to know who I work for? Elena's accent evaporated, replaced by perfect, unaccented English. Neither of you could afford to find out. She drove her heel down on Corleone's instep, a move designed to disable, not just hurt, and simultaneously twisted her wrist using a joint manipulation technique that exploited the natural weakness in human grip strength. His hand released, and Elena dropped into a roll that took her past Dante's line of fire. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, but Elena was already through the loading dock door, hitting the night air at a dead sprint. The extraction point was 6 blocks away, an eternity when you had half the Corleone family soldiers probably flooding the streets. Elena's lungs burned as she ran, ditching her server's apron in a dumpster, ripping off the blonde wig to reveal her natural dark auburn hair underneath. She'd memorized every alley, every camera blind spot, every potential escape route in this neighborhood. It was what separated professionals from corpses in her line of work. 3 blocks. 2. A black SUV rounded the corner ahead, tires squealing. Elena's hand went to her empty holster before she remembered. Her gun was still in her locker at Bellissimo, along with Elena Harker's entire fictional life. But the SUV didn't slow down to intercept her. It exploded. The shockwave threw Elena backward into a brick wall, her ears ringing, her vision swimming with orange afterimages. Through the smoke and flames, she saw figures emerging, not Corleone's men, but something worse. Rivals. The Antonov family, judging by the red spider tattoos visible on their necks. There, one of them shouted, spotting her. The Corleone witness. Witness? Elena's mind struggled to process through the concussion haze. They thought she worked for Corleone? More gunfire erupted, but not aimed at her. Elena's head snapped around to see Dante Wick and 3 other Corleone soldiers taking cover behind a delivery truck, returning fire at the Antonov crew. She was caught in the crossfire of a gang war she wasn't even part of. The recording device in her pocket suddenly felt insignificant compared to the very real possibility of dying in the next 30 seconds. Elena's training screamed at her to run, to use the chaos as cover and disappear into the night. But then she saw him. Vincent Corleone, separated from his men, pinned down behind a burnt-out car with at least 2 Antonov soldiers advancing on his position. He had a gun, but from Elena's angle, she could see what he couldn't. A third attacker flanking him from the right, assault rifle raised. Elena's body moved before her brain could catch up. She sprinted forward, yanking the knife from her boot, and threw it with the precision of someone who'd spent 1,000 hours practicing that exact motion. The blade buried itself in the third attacker's shoulder, spinning him around just as he pulled the trigger. His shots went wide, stitching across a storefront window instead of Corleone's skull. Corleone's head whipped around, his eyes finding Elena's across the chaos. For a moment, confusion and calculation warred across his features. Then he moved with the fluid grace of someone equally at home in boardrooms and battlefields, rolling from cover and putting 2 bullets in each of the advancing Antonov soldiers. The entire firefight lasted maybe 90 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 5 bodies lay in the street, and sirens wailed in the distance. Dante appeared at Corleone's side, breathing hard. "Boss, we need to move. Cops are 2 minutes out." But Corleone was still staring at Elena, standing in the middle of the street with her server's uniform torn and bloody, her real hair revealed, her entire cover blown to hell. "You saved my life," he said, and it sounded like an accusation. "Why?" Elena opened her mouth, but no clever lie came. She'd spent 6 weeks pretending to be someone else, building a cover story so detailed she'd half believed it herself. But standing here, with death and fire surrounding them, she couldn't remember any of it. "I don't know," she finally said, and realized with shock that it was true. Corleone's expression shifted, something almost like respect flickering in those grey eyes. "Dante, bring her." "Boss." That wasn't a request. Before Elena could protest, Dante had her arm in a grip that was firm but surprisingly gentle. "Don't make this difficult," he muttered. "You just saved his life. That buys you a conversation, not freedom." They moved as a unit through the back alleys, the sound of sirens growing closer. Elena's extraction team was gone. No way they'd stick around with this much heat. She was alone, her cover blown, being escorted by the very people she'd been sent to spy on. And the recording device that could destroy Vincent Corleone's entire operation was still hidden in her uniform, pressed against her skin like a ticking time bomb. 20 minutes later, Elena found herself in a place she'd only seen in surveillance photos. Vincent Corleone's private penthouse, 40 stories above the city lights. The space was nothing like she'd expected. No gaudy displays of wealth, no gold-plated everything. Instead, it was almost minimalist, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture in greys and blacks, and books. Hundreds of books lining custom-built shelves. "Surprised?" Corleone's voice came from behind her. He'd changed out of his blood-spattered suit into dark jeans and a simple black t-shirt. Somehow, he looked more dangerous this way. More real. "I thought Mafia bosses had better taste," Elena said, defaulting to sarcasm because it was easier than honesty. His laugh was short, genuine. "And I thought spies were supposed to be better liars." He poured 2 glasses of something amber from a crystal decanter. "Sit. We are going to have a very honest conversation, you and I." Elena remained standing. "What makes you think I'm a spy?" "Please." Corleone handed her one of the glasses. "The way you moved, the way you assessed threats, the fact that you threw a knife with perfect accuracy while under fire, you're either a spy or an assassin. And if you were an assassin, I'd already be dead." He had a point. So here's what's going to happen, Corleone continued, settling into a leather chair that probably cost more than most cars. You're going to tell me who you really are, who you work for, and what you were looking for in my restaurant. And then I'm going to decide whether to kill you, turn you over to people much less pleasant than me, or... He paused, taking a sip of his drink. Option 3. What's option 3? I haven't decided yet. His grey eyes studied her with an intensity that made Elena feel exposed in a way that had nothing to do with her blown cover. But you saved my life tonight. In my world, that creates a debt. Even if you're my enemy. Elena finally sat, the recording device digging into her ribs like a guilty conscience. She'd been trained to resist interrogation, to maintain cover under pressure, to die before revealing classified information. But she'd never been trained for this. A man who should want her dead, offering her a drink and talking about debts and honor. My name, she said slowly, is Elena Harker. That part was true. The rest. She looked into her glass, seeing distorted reflections of the city lights. The rest was a role I played. And who writes your roles? Elena met his gaze. People who want you destroyed. The honesty seemed to surprise him. Yet you saved my life. Like I said, I don't know why. Corleone leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I think you do. I think somewhere between serving pasta and pretending to be invisible, you realize something. What's that? That maybe the people who sent you aren't the good guys. And maybe I'm not the monster they told you I was. Are you Team Elena or Team Vincent? Drop a comment and let me know whose side you're on. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This story is about to get even more intense. Elena wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. But looking at Vincent Corleone in his expensive penthouse filled with books, talking about debts and honor while the city burned below them, she found she couldn't. Because he might be right. And that terrified her more than anything that had happened tonight. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut, ready to snap. Elena's fingers tightened around her glass. Every instinct screamed to her to run, to fight, to do anything except sit here having a philosophical conversation with a man whose organization she'd been sent to dismantle. You want to know the truth, she said finally, her voice harder than she intended. The truth is that 3 months ago, your family's operations resulted in 17 containers of weapons being shipped to a war zone. Those weapons ended up in the hands of warlords who used them to massacre a village. 234 people. Mostly women and children. Corleone's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. And you know this how? Because I was there. The words tasted like ash. I was running an extraction op for refugees when your guns showed up and turned everything into a killing field. So forgive me if I'm having trouble seeing you as anything other than the monster who profited from their deaths. She expected anger, denial, maybe threats. What she didn't expect was for Corleone to stand and walk to the window, his shoulders tense, his reflection ghostly in the glass. The Antonov deal, he said quietly. We sold them surplus weapons with the understanding they were going to South America for private security. If they ended up in Africa. He turned, and the look on his face was something between fury and pain. I don't deal in blood money, Elena. Someone in my organization went rogue. Convenient excuse. Is it? He moved toward her with dangerous grace. You've been watching me for 6 weeks. Did you see a man who profits from massacres? Or did you see someone trying to run a business in a world where the lines between legal and illegal are drawn by people just as corrupt as those they condemn? Elena stood, refusing to let him tower over her. You're a criminal, Corleone. Don't dress it up with philosophy. And what are you? He was close now, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his grey eyes. Who gave you the right to be judge and jury? What government agency sent a woman to seduce information out of me? Or were you just supposed to sleep your way into my bed and slit my throat? The accusation hit harder than it should have. I don't work that way. No. His voice softened unexpectedly. I don't think you do. That's why you're still alive. The moment hung between them, charged with something Elena didn't want to name. This close, she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the weight of command that sat on shoulders broader than they first appeared. He smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder, a contradiction that somehow fit. Boss. Dante's voice shattered the tension as he entered the room. We have a problem. Corleone stepped back, his mask of control sliding back into place. What kind of problem? The Antonov hit tonight wasn't random. We just got word. It's Dimitri's opening move. He's declaring war. Dante's eyes flicked to Elena. And word on the street is that someone's been feeding him intelligence about our operations for the past 6 weeks. Elena's blood ran cold. That's impossible, she said, but even as the words left her mouth, pieces started clicking into place. The too convenient timing of her assignment. The way her handler had insisted she plant bugs in specific locations. The extraction team that had abandoned her the moment things went sideways. She'd been set up. Corleone was watching her with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. You're just figuring it out, aren't you? Someone's been using you. No. Elena shook her head, but certainty was crumbling. My agency wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Use a disposable asset to start a gang war? To destabilize my operation so someone else could move in? Corleone pulled out his phone, swiping through screens before turning it to face her. Recognize him. The photo showed a man in an expensive suit, grey hair slicked back, meeting with Dmitry Antonov in what looked like a restaurant booth. Elena's world tilted. It was her handler, Agent Morrison, the man who'd recruited her 7 years ago, who'd trained her, who'd sent her on this mission with explicit instructions to gather intelligence on Corleone's weapon deals. That photo is from 3 days ago, Corleone said quietly. Your boss has been feeding Antonov every piece of intelligence you collected. You weren't gathering evidence for prosecution, Elena. You were providing targeting data for a hostile takeover. The recording device against her ribs suddenly felt like a brand. How much of the conversation it had captured would end up in Antonov's hands? How many Corleone soldiers would die because of information she'd gathered? I need to make a call, Elena said, her voice hollow. Phone's dead, Dante said, holding up her cell, the one she'd left in her locker. Wiped remotely about 30 minutes ago, right after you failed to make your extraction. Of course. Morrison had cut her loose the moment she became a liability. No rescue, no backup, no paper trail connecting her to the agency. She was just another causality in a game she'd been too blind to see. Elena's legs suddenly felt weak. She'd killed for Morrison. She'd compromised her morals, her values, everything she believed in, all because she thought she was serving justice. And it had all been a lie. I think I need to sit down, she managed. Corleone guided her back to the chair with surprising gentleness. Dante, give us a minute. Boss, she's still. I said give us a minute. Dante left, but his disapproval hung in the air like smoke. Corleone poured more whiskey into Elena's glass. Drink. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm looking at 7 years of my life that meant nothing, Elena said, then downed the whiskey in one burning swallow. Everything I did, everyone I hurt, it was all for a lie. Not all of it. Corleone settled into the chair across from her. You saved my life tonight. That was real. That was stupid. Maybe. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But it tells me something important. What's that? That Elena Harker, the real one, not the cover identity, still has a conscience. Still makes choices based on something other than orders. He leaned forward. You're good at what you do. I watched the footage from the restaurant. The way you move through the crowd, reading people, staying invisible. You have skills most of my people would kill for. Elena's head snapped up. If you're about to offer me a job. I'm about to offer you a choice. His voice was serious now, all business. Option 1. I let you walk out of here. You disappear, start over somewhere, hope Morrison doesn't decide you know too much and send someone to clean up loose ends. The thought hadn't occurred to her, but of course Morrison would. She'd been inside Corleone's inner circle, even briefly. She was a liability. Option 2. You work for me. Use everything Morrison taught you, everything you learned in 6 weeks of surveillance, and help me figure out who in my organization has been feeding information to Antonov. In return, I keep you alive and help you get revenge on the man who used you. You mean option 3, Elena corrected. You said earlier you were deciding on option 3. Corleone's smile widened. Smart. I like that. He stood, extending his hand. So what's it going to be, Elena Harker? Walk away and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder? Or stay and help me burn down the people who turned you into a weapon? Elena stared at his offered hand. This was insane. Suicidal. A complete betrayal of everything she'd thought she believed in. But Morrison had betrayed her first. Had used her like a disposable tool and then thrown her away. And sitting in this penthouse, looking into Vincent Corleone's eyes, Elena realized something terrifying. She believed him. Believed that he hadn't known about the massacre. Believed that someone in his organization had gone rogue. Believed that maybe, just maybe, he was more than the monster Morrison had painted him to be. One condition, Elena said. Name it. If I find out you lied to me, if I discover you didn't know about those weapons and those deaths, I walk away. No matter what. Deal? Corleone's hand remained steady. Deal. Though fair warning, once you start looking into my operation, you're going to find things that aren't pretty. I'm not a saint, Elena. I never claimed to be. I don't need saints, Elena said, taking his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and sent an unexpected jolt through her system. I need honest monsters. His laugh was genuine this time, transforming his face from dangerous to almost handsome. Honest monsters. I like that. We should put it on business cards. The absurdity of the situation finally hit her. 24 hours ago, she'd been a waitress planning to bring down a criminal empire. Now she was shaking hands with the crime lord himself, agreeing to work for the very organization she'd been sent to destroy. Drop a comment below if you think Elena made the right choice. Is Vincent telling the truth, or is Elena walking into an even bigger trap? Let me know your theories. Dante returned, his expression carefully neutral. Boss, we have confirmation. Antonov's people are moving on the waterfront operations. We need to respond. How many of our people are there? Corleone asked, his demeanor shifting instantly from philosophical to tactical. 20. Maybe 25. They're not prepared for a full assault. Elena stood. The waterfront is a trap. Both men looked at her. I planted a listening device under your table tonight, she continued, deciding honesty was her only currency now. If Morrison's been feeding Antonov my intelligence, he knows you have a meeting scheduled at the waterfront tomorrow night. He's hitting you early, while your people are unprepared. Corleone's eyes narrowed. What else did you report? Elena's mind raced through 6 weeks of surveillance. Guard rotations. Supply routes. The location of your secondary accounts. She met his gaze. Everything Morrison asked for, I gave him. Which means Antonov knows everything too. Christ, Dante muttered. But Corleone was smiling, a sharp, predatory expression that reminded Elena exactly who she was dealing with. Then we know what they know, which means we can use it against them. He moved to a wall panel, pressing his palm against it. The panel slid aside to reveal a room Elena hadn't known existed, a command center with multiple screens showing feeds from cameras across the city, maps with digital markers, and enough firepower to start a small war. Welcome to the family business, Corleone said, gesturing for her to enter. Hope you're ready, because we're about to turn your intelligence against everyone who thought they could use us as pawns. Elena stepped into the room, the recording device still hidden against her skin, a secret she wasn't ready to reveal yet. Because despite everything, despite the handshake and the promises, she still didn't know if she could trust Vincent Corleone completely. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Morrison had made a fatal mistake. He'd trained her too well. And now, all those skills he'd honed, all those lessons he'd taught, all that deadly expertise, she was going to use every bit of it to destroy him. The game had changed. And Elena Harker was done playing by anyone's rules but her own. The command center hummed with quiet energy, computers processing data, encrypted communications crackling through speakers, a three-dimensional map of the city rotating slowly on the main screen. Elena had seen operations rooms before. CIA black sites, military command posts, even a Russian intelligence facility during one particularly hairy extraction. But this was different. This was a criminal empire's nerve center, and she was standing in the middle of it, no longer as an infiltrator but as something she couldn't quite define yet. These are our primary assets, Corleone said, highlighting markers on the map. Red dots clustered around the waterfront, the financial district, and 3 suburban locations Elena recognized as front businesses. Antonov will hit the waterfront first. It's our most vulnerable position and the highest value target. Dante pulled up security footage on a secondary screen. We've got 23 people there right now. Mostly low level. If Antonov comes in hard. They are dead, Elena finished. The tactical assessment was automatic, clinical. Then the reality hit her. These were real people, not just assets on a map. People who would die because of intelligence she'd gathered. We need to evacuate them. And show Antonov we know he's coming. Dante's voice was skeptical. That tips our hand. So does letting them die, Elena shot back. Corleone held up a hand, silencing them both. She's right. We evacuate quietly, make it look like a shift change. Dante, coordinate it. I want everyone out in 30 minutes. And then? Dante asked. A slow smile spread across Corleone's face, the kind that probably terrified his enemies. Then we give Antonov exactly what he's expecting. An undermanned warehouse, vulnerable supply routes, and a perfect opportunity to strike. He turned to Elena. How detailed were your reports to Morrison? Elena's stomach churned, but she forced herself to answer. Very. Guard positions, security protocols, response times. I even documented the blind spots in your camera coverage. Perfect. Corleone zoomed in on the waterfront facility. Because if Antonov knows our weaknesses, he'll exploit them in predictable ways. Dante, I want teams positioned here, here, and here. He marked positions on the map. When Antonov's people come through those blind spots, we'll be waiting. A counter-ambush, Elena said, understanding dawning. You're turning my intelligence into a trap. Our intelligence now, Corleone corrected, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. You're part of this operation, which means every asset you have is mine, and vice versa, including the fact that Morrison thinks you're either dead or captured. He has no idea you've switched sides. I haven't switched sides, Elena protested, though even to her own ears it sounded weak. I'm just temporarily aligned with you against a common enemy. Dante snorted. Whatever helps you sleep at night, princess. Dante. Corleone's voice carried a warning. Elena risked her life to save mine. That earns respect, not sarcasm. The two men stared at each other for a long moment before Dante finally nodded. You're right. Sorry. He didn't sound particularly sorry, but he extended his hand to Elena. Welcome to the team, I guess. Try not to stab us in the back. Elena shook his hand, appreciating the honesty if not the warmth. I'll do my best not to, if you do your best not to shoot me. Deal. As Dante left to coordinate the evacuation, Elena found herself alone with Corleone again. The command center felt suddenly smaller, more intimate despite all the technology surrounding them. You don't trust me, Corleone said. It wasn't a question. I barely know you. Fair enough. He pulled up a file on one of the screens, a dossier with her photo attached. Elena Harker, age 28, born in Boston to Ukrainian immigrants. Recruited by the CIA at 21 after demonstrating exceptional aptitude for pattern recognition and fieldcraft. Specialized in deep cover operations. 15 successful missions, 0 compromised covers until tonight. Elena's jaw tightened. You've been investigating me. Since the moment you walked into my restaurant. You were too perfect, the right accent, the right background story, the right level of competence to blend in. It made me suspicious. He closed the file. But here's what your file doesn't say: why you do this. What drives someone to become a ghost for 7 years? The question caught her off guard. In all her time with Morrison, no one had ever asked her that. Does it matter? To me it does. I need to know if you're running towards something or away from it. Elena walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. My father was killed when I was 16. Wrong place, wrong time. A gang shooting in a convenience store. The men who did it walked because the only witness was too scared to testify. She pressed her palm against the cool glass. I spent 2 years trying to find justice through legal channels. Courts, lawyers, police. Nothing. The system failed him. Failed my family. So you became the system's weapon. I became someone who could make a difference, Elena corrected. Or so I thought. Turns out I was just someone Morrison could use to further his own agenda. She felt Corleone move closer, his reflection appearing in the window beside hers. Your father. What was his name? Yuri Harker. And the men who killed him? Elena turned to face him. Why? Because if you're working for me now, your enemies become my enemies. And your father deserves justice, even if it's 7 years late. His expression was serious, sincere. Give me names, and I'll find them. That's what family does. The word family hit her harder than expected. She'd been alone for so long, hiding behind covers and false identities, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone in her corner. You don't owe me that, she said quietly. No, Corleone agreed. But you saved my life tonight. In my world, that creates bonds that go deeper than blood. So either accept that you're under my protection now, or walk away. But if you stay, you need to understand, I take care of my people, Elena. All of them. If you're feeling this chemistry between Elena and Vincent, smash that subscribe button. And tell me in the comments, do you think Vincent is genuine, or is this all part of a longer game? Before Elena could respond, alarms blared throughout the penthouse. Dante's voice crackled over the intercom. Boss, we've got a situation. 4 SUVs just pulled up outside the building. Armed men, at least a dozen. They're not Antonov's people. Corleone was already moving, pulling weapons from hidden compartments. He tossed Elena a Glock. You know how to use this. Elena checked the magazine automatically, chambered around. Better than you probably want me to. Good. Because whoever's downstairs, they're not here for a friendly chat. He strapped on a shoulder holster, his movements practiced and efficient. Dante, secure the elevators. I want eyes on all entry points. Already done. But boss. Dante's voice carried a note Elena had never heard from him before. Concern. You need to see this. I'm putting it on screen 3. The monitor flickered to life, showing security footage from the building's entrance. A man in a dark suit stood facing the camera, holding up what looked like a badge. Elena's blood turned to ice. Morrison, she whispered. The man on the screen was older than in the photo Corleone had shown her, his grey hair thinner, but there was no mistaking him. Her handler, her mentor, the man who'd trained her and then thrown her away. And he was smiling directly at the camera. Elena Harker. Morrison's voice came through the speakers, amplified by whatever system he'd patched into. I know you're in there, and I know you've done something incredibly stupid. His smile widened. Come down peacefully, and I promise Mr. Corleone won't be harmed. Refuse, and my team has orders to level this entire floor. You have 5 minutes to decide. The transmission cut out. Elena stood frozen, her mind racing. Morrison wouldn't have come personally unless this was critical, which meant either he wanted her alive for interrogation, or he wanted to tie up loose ends permanently. He's bluffing, Dante said, appearing in the doorway with body armor and enough weapons to start a war. He can't level a floor in a residential building. Too many civilians, too much attention. He's not bluffing, Elena said quietly. Morrison doesn't make threats he can't follow through on. If he says he'll level this floor, he has a way to do it that won't trace back to him. Corleone was studying her with those penetrating grey eyes. What does he want? Me. Or more specifically, whatever I learned about your organization tonight. He can't afford to let me live knowing he's been working with Antonov. Then we don't give him a choice. Corleone pulled on his jacket, checking his weapons. Dante, how many ways out of this building? 3. Main elevator, service elevator, and emergency stairs, all of which Morrison's people will have covered. Then we make a 4th way. Corleone turned to Elena. How much do you trust me? Not at all, Elena admitted, but apparently more than I trust Morrison. His smile was quick, fierce. Good enough. Follow me. He led them through the penthouse to what looked like a decorative wall panel. A palm scan later, and the panel slid aside to reveal a narrow maintenance shaft. This building was designed by a man who understood the value of paranoia, Corleone explained, shining a flashlight down the shaft. It descended into darkness, metal rungs built into the walls. This connects to the old subway tunnels 200 feet below. From there, We can access half a dozen exit points across the city. Elena peered down the shaft. You have an escape route through abandoned subway tunnels. I have escape routes through half the city. Like I said, paranoia is valuable. He gestured toward the shaft. Ladies first. How chivalrous. More like I want someone I trust covering our descent. And right now, the person I trust most is the one Morrison wants dead. The logic was sound, even if the situation was insane. Elena holstered her weapon and grabbed the first rung. If this is an elaborate way to murder me, I'm going to be very disappointed. If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't go to this much trouble. Strangely reassuring. The descent was claustrophobic and endless. Elena's arms burned by the time her feet hit solid ground. The air smelled of mold and old concrete, and somewhere in the darkness, water dripped with rhythmic persistence. Corleone and Dante landed beside her moments later. Flashlights clicked on, revealing a tunnel that stretched in both directions, graffiti-covered walls testifying to decades of abandonment. This way, Corleone said, leading them south. There's a safe house 3 blocks from here. We regroup, figure out our next move. They'd barely gone 50 feet when Elena heard it, the distinctive click of a weapon being cocked. Stop right there, Vincent. A woman stepped from the shadows, gun trained on Corleone. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail and eyes that held nothing but cold calculation. And she was wearing a wire that Elena recognized immediately. CIA issue. Agent Morrison sends his regards, the woman said, and his disappointment that you thought he wouldn't have contingency plans. Dante's weapon came up, but the woman shook her head. I wouldn't. There are 3 more of us in this tunnel. You'd be dead before you pulled the trigger. Elena's mind raced. Morrison had predicted their escape route, which meant either he'd been surveilling Corleone for longer than anyone knew, or, there's a mole, Elena said aloud. Someone in your organization told Morrison about this tunnel. Corleone's expression darkened. That's impossible. Only 3 people know about this escape route. 4, the woman corrected, smiling. Your head of security knew. Right, Dante. The world seemed to slow down as Elena processed the words. She turned to Dante, whose expression had gone carefully blank. No, Corleone said, and there was genuine pain in his voice. Dante's been with me for 10 years. His family. He's also been on Morrison's payroll for 6 months, the woman said. How else do you think we knew Elena's cover was about to be blown? How else did we know exactly when to strike? Your loyal guard dog has been feeding us information this entire time. Dante's weapon was still raised, but now Elena saw the microshifts in his stance, the way he'd positioned himself to have a clear shot at both her and Corleone. I'm sorry, boss, Dante said, and he actually sounded like he meant it. But you were going to get us all killed with your idealistic bullshit about honor and rules. Morrison offered me a way out. A way to survive. By betraying me. Corleone's voice was dangerously quiet. By being smart. The old ways are dead, Vincent. Morrison and Antonov are going to carve up this city, and I'd rather be on the winning side. Elena calculated angles, distances, probabilities. The woman in front of them, 3 more agents somewhere in the darkness, and Dante behind them with a weapon and the element of surprise. Their odds weren't good, but she'd survived worse. Vincent, Elena said quietly. When I move, go left. Elena, don't. She moved. 7 years of training condensed into 3 seconds of pure violence. Elena dropped into a slide, her weapon coming up even as she moved. 2 shots, one catching the woman in the shoulder, spinning her around. The second shot missing as return fire erupted from the darkness. Corleone moved left as instructed, his own weapon barking. Muzzle flashes lit the tunnel like lightning, and Elena rolled behind a concrete pillar as bullets chewed into the ground where she'd been. 3 o'clock, she shouted to Corleone, spotting another agent emerging from a side tunnel. But Dante was faster. His shot caught the agent in the chest, dropping him instantly. For a moment, confusion reigned. Then Dante's voice cut through the chaos. Go. I've got your back. You just, Corleone started. I said Geo. Morrison's people are coming down the main shaft. You've got maybe 2 minutes. Dante fired again, providing cover. I may be a traitor, but I'm not a murderer. Get Elena out of here, and we'll call it even for all those years of loyalty. Elena didn't wait to see if Corleone would argue. She grabbed his arm and pulled him deeper into the tunnel, trusting that Dante, whatever his true loyalties, had just bought them the seconds they needed to survive. Behind them, gunfire echoed like thunder in the confined space. They ran through the darkness, their flashlights cutting narrow paths through decades of abandonment. Elena's lungs burned, her heart hammered, and the recording device against her ribs felt like it was on fire. There. Corleone pointed to a ladder leading up to a street grate. That comes out near the safe house. They climbed desperately, and Elena used her shoulder to force open the grate. Fresh air hit her face like a blessing as they emerged into an alley behind a closed restaurant. Corleone was right behind her, breathing hard. Dante made his choice, Elena said, though her voice was gentler than she intended. Whether it was redemption or strategy, he gave us a chance. We can't waste it. Sirens wailed in the distance. Morrison would have the entire area locked down within minutes. They needed to move, to disappear, too. Elena. She turned to find Corleone looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, maybe. Or respect. Or something more complicated that neither of them was ready to name. Thank you, he said simply, for not leaving me down there. We are even now, Elena replied. You saved my life, I saved yours. Clean slate. Is it? He stepped closer, and Elena was suddenly aware of how alone they were in this alley, how the adrenaline of survival was transmuting into something else entirely. Because it doesn't feel clean to me. It feels like we just jumped off a cliff together, and the only way to survive the fall is to hold on to each other. Elena's breath caught. This was dangerous territory, more dangerous than gunfights and betrayals. Because the way Corleone was looking at her, the way her body was responding to his proximity despite every logical reason she should keep her distance. This was the kind of danger that destroyed people from the inside out. We should go, she managed. Yes, he agreed. But neither of them moved. Are you feeling this tension? Comment below, #Team Elena or #Team Vincent. Who's playing who in this deadly game? And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. A gunshot cracks somewhere behind them, shattering the moment. They ran together into the night, two people who should have been enemies, bound now by blood and bullets and something neither could afford to acknowledge. The game had changed again. And Elena Harker was starting to realize that the most dangerous thing about Vincent Corleone wasn't his power or his violence. It was how much she was beginning to trust him. The safe house was a cramped apartment above a laundromat, smelling of detergent and old coffee. Corleone locked 3 separate deadbolts while Elena swept the space for bugs, old habits dying hard. Clear, she said, holstering her weapon. Corleone moved to a laptop hidden in a false drawer. We need to figure out who else is compromised. If Dante betrayed me, there could be others. Elena stood behind him, watching encrypted files open across the screen. Then she saw it, a financial record that made her blood run cold. Vincent, stop. Go back. He scrolled back. What? That transaction. 3 days ago. $5 million to an offshore account. Her finger trembled as she pointed. I know that account number. Morrison showed it to me as proof you were funding terrorists. Corleone's jaw tightened. That money went to a refugee relocation fund. Children orphaned by the war you mentioned. I was trying to make it right. Elena's world tilted. Morrison told me it was terrorist funding. He used it as justification for this entire operation. She looked at Corleone, really looked at him. He's been framing you from the start. It's worse than that. Corleone pulled up another file. Look at the routing. That money passed through 3 shell companies before reaching the refugee fund. And one of those companies, he highlighted a name, is owned by Morrison himself. He's been laundering money through your charitable donations, Elena whispered, making you look guilty while profiting from your attempts to do good. And using you to gather intelligence that would let Antonov eliminate me and take over my operations. Corleone turned to face her. We are not enemies, Elena. We are both pawns in Morrison's game. The recording device suddenly felt unbearable against her skin. Elena's hand moved to her uniform, then stopped. If she revealed it now, told Corleone about the device that had recorded everything from tonight, would he trust her? Or would he see it as another betrayal? There's something I need to tell you, she started. Then Corleone's phone rang. He answered on speaker. What? Boss. It was Dante, his voice strained with pain. Morrison has your sister. Elena watched Corleone's face drain of color. Isabella? She's in Paris. Not anymore. Morrison grabbed her 3 hours ago. He's offering a trade. Her life for Elena and all the intelligence you've gathered on his operation. Corleone's hand clenched into a fist. Where? The old cathedral. Midnight. Come alone, or she dies. The line went dead. Elena's mind raced. It's a trap. Morrison doesn't leave witnesses. He'll kill all 3 of us. I know. Corleone's voice was hollow. But she's my sister. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. Elena pulled out the recording device, her last secret laid bare. This has everything. Morrison with Antonov, his confession about using me, all of it. We give him this. Tell him it's the only copy. And while he's distracted, backslash. Backslash, you've had that this entire time? Backslash, Corleone's eyes were dangerous. Backslash, yes. I was going to use it against you. But now, backslash, Elena met his gaze. Backslash, now I'm giving it to you. Use it to save your sister. And then we destroy Morrison together. Backslash. The moment stretched between them. Fragile as glass. Then Corleone took the device. Backslash, you're full of surprises. Elena Harker. Backslash, backslash, so are you. Vincent Corleone. Backslash, his hand lingered on hers. Backslash, after this is over, assuming we survive, backslash. Backslash, one crisis at a time, backslash, Elena interrupted. Though her heart was pounding. Backslash, right. Backslash, he smiled. Small, genuine. Backslash, one crisis at a time. Backslash, drop a comment if you think they'll save Isabella. And hit subscribe. The next part is explosive. The cathedral loomed against the midnight sky like a monument to broken prayers. Elena checked her weapon for the 3rd time, crouched beside Corleone in the shadows across the street. 6 exits. Morrison will have them all covered. Then we don't use the exits. Corleone pointed to a narrow window 30 feet up. Old bell tower. Abandoned for decades. You want me to climb that? I want us both to survive this. His eyes met hers. Split up. I go through the front with the recording device. You get Isabella out through the tower. Elena grabbed his arm. Vincent, he'll kill you the moment you hand it over. Probably. His smile was sad. But my sister lives. That's worth it. Not to me. The words came out before Elena could stop them. Corleone stared at her, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. Elena. Save it for when we are not about to die. She released his arm. New plan. I give Morrison the device. He wants me, not you. While I'm distracting him, you get Isabella and run. Absolutely not. It's not your choice. Like hell it isn't. A spotlight suddenly blazed from the cathedral steps. Morrison's voice boomed through speakers. 30 seconds, Vincent. Or I start removing Isabella's fingers. They were out of time. Elena made the decision. She stepped into the light, hands raised, the recording device visible in her palm. Morrison. It's me. Let her go. Elena, no. Corleone's shout echoed, but she was already walking forward. Morrison descended the cathedral steps, flanked by 6 armed agents. Behind them, Elena could see Isabella, beautiful, terrified, a gun pressed to her head. The prodigal daughter returns, Morrison said, smiling that same smile from 1,000 debriefings. I trained you better than this, Elena. Walking into an obvious trap. Let Isabella go. You have what you want. Do I? Morrison took the device, examined it. This could be a fake. A copy. How do I know it's the only one? Because I'm not stupid enough to make copies when I knew you were tracking my every move. Elena forced herself to stay calm. You win, Morrison. You always do. Just let the girl go. Morrison's expression shifted, something cruel sliding behind his eyes. The girl. You mean Vincent's precious baby sister. He turned to Isabella. Did you know your brother's new girlfriend used to work for me? That she's the reason we know everything about his operation. Elena saw Isabella's eyes widen, saw the betrayal bloom across her features even as tears streaked her face. Don't listen to him, Elena said desperately. Why not? It's the truth. Morrison pocketed the device. Here's what's going to happen. My men are going to kill Vincent Corleone. Then they're going to kill his sister. And you, Elena, you're going to watch. Because you need to understand the cost of betrayal. You betrayed me first. Elena's voice cracked. You used me, lied to me, turned me into a weapon for your profit. I made you into something useful. Morrison pulled his own weapon. And now you're just another loose end. The gunshot was deafening. But it wasn't Morrison who fired. Isabella collapsed, blood blooming across her chest. The agent holding her stumbled backward, gun smoking. No. Corleone's roar came from somewhere in the darkness. Then chaos erupted. Corleone emerged from the shadows, weapons blazing. 2 of Morrison's agents went down immediately. Elena dove for cover, returning fire, but her heart was screaming because Isabella was down, bleeding, possibly dying. Morrison ran for the cathedral, and Elena chased him. Inside, the space was vast and empty, moonlight streaming through broken stained glass. Morrison spun, weapon raised. You can't win, Elena. Even if you kill me, my people will hunt you forever. Then I'll die on my feet instead of on my knees. Elena's weapon was steady. That's the difference between us. You taught me to be a weapon, but Vincent taught me I could be something more. Morrison laughed. He's a criminal. A killer. So am I. So are you. Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. But at least he's honest about it. She fired. Morrison dropped, clutching his shoulder. Elena kicked his weapon away, standing over him. Where are the copies? She demanded. I know you made copies of that recording. Morrison's smile was bloody. Everywhere. Cloud servers, dead drops, with associates across 3 continents. You can't stop what's coming. Outside, Elena heard sirens. Police, probably. Morrison would have called them as backup. She had seconds to decide, finish Morrison, or save the people she'd come to care about. What would you do? Comment your choice. And subscribe so you don't miss the ending. Elena chose. She ran. Back outside, Corleone was cradling Isabella, his hands pressed against her wound. Stay with me, Bella. Please. We need to move, Elena said, even as her heart broke watching them. Police are coming. I can't leave her. You won't have to. Elena pulled out her phone, dialing a number she'd sworn never to use again. This is Elena Harker. Authorization code Omega-7 Black. I need a medical evac. My location, civilian trauma victim. Yes, I know the cost. She hung up. Help's coming. But Vincent. She touched his shoulder gently. We can't be here when they arrive. If Morrison's people identify you. I don't care. His voice was broken. She's all I have left. No. Elena knelt beside them. You have me. And I'm not leaving you. Isabella's eyes flickered open, focusing on Elena. You saved him. I tried to save both of you, Elena whispered. Good enough. Isabella's smile was weak. His, a pain, but he's worth it. A helicopter appeared overhead, Elena's former agency, coming through despite everything. But beneath that sound, Elena heard vehicles approaching. Morrison's reinforcements. Vincent, we are out of time. He kissed Isabella's forehead. I'll come back for you. I swear. I know. Isabella squeezed his hand. Go. They ran, leaving Isabella to the medical team, disappearing into the night as Morrison's people flooded the cathedral grounds. Hours later, in a different safe house, Elena watched Vincent stare at his silent phone, waiting for news about his sister. She'll make it, Elena said, though she couldn't know for sure. Because of you. He finally looked at her. You could have escaped. You could have left us both. I couldn't. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. I couldn't leave you. The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. Then Vincent crossed the room and kissed her, desperate, grateful, terrified. And Elena kissed him back, pouring 7 years of loneliness into that moment, letting herself feel something real for the first time since her father's death. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent pressed his forehead to hers. "We are going to lose everything before this is over," he said. "I know. You could still walk away. So could you?" "I can't." His voice was raw. "Not anymore." "Neither can I," Elena admitted. Outside, dawn was breaking. And somewhere in the city, Morrison was planning his revenge, Isabella was fighting for her life, and the recording device Elena had given up might not be enough to save any of them. But in this moment, in this room, Elena Harker finally understood what she'd been running from all these years. Not danger, not death, but the terrifying possibility of having something, someone, worth living for. Elena woke to find Vincent already awake, laptop open, his face illuminated by the screen's cold glow. "How long have you been up?" she asked. 3 hours. "I got word. Isabella stable. She's going to make it." Relief flooded through Elena. "That's good. There's more." Vincent turned the laptop toward her. "Morrison's dead." Elena's blood went cold. "What?" "Someone killed him in the hospital. Made it look like complications from his gunshot wound, but my sources say it was professional. Clean. Efficient. Antonov." "That's what I thought. But look at this." He pulled up a file. Morrison's accounts, all of them, were drained 6 hours ago. $15 million, moved through a series of shell companies and then gone. Elena studied the transaction trail, her mind racing. This routing pattern. I've seen it before. Her eyes widened. Dante. This is Dante's work. Vincent nodded slowly. He didn't betray us to Morrison. He was playing Morrison the whole time, waiting for the right moment to take everything. And he used us as the distraction. Elena couldn't help but feel a grudging respect. He let Morrison think he'd won, then eliminated him and took his empire. Which means Dante now has Morrison's evidence against me, his network of corrupt officials, and enough money to disappear forever. Vincent closed the laptop. Or to come after us. Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Yes." "Elena." Dante's voice. "Before you try to trace this call, don't bother. I'm calling to offer a deal." Vincent moved closer, listening. "I'm listening," Elena said carefully. "Morrison kept copies of that recording in 5 locations. I have 4 of them. The 5th is in a secure server that will automatically upload to every news agency in the world if I don't reset it every 24 hours. Dante paused. "I'm willing to give you the password, in exchange for something you have." "What?" "Your word that you and Vincent will leave the city. Disappear. Build a life somewhere Morrison's people can't find you." His voice softened slightly. "I don't want to kill you. Either of you. But I will if you force my hand." Elena looked at Vincent, saw the conflict in his eyes. His entire life was here. His business, his connections, his wounded sister. "Why would you do this?" Elena asked. "Because Vincent treated me like family when no one else would. And because you saved his life when you could have let him die." Dante's tone became businesslike again. "You have 12 hours to decide. After that, the recording goes public, and you both become the most wanted criminals in 3 countries. Choose wisely." The line went dead. Vincent stood, pacing. "We can't run. Everything I've built is covered in Morrison's blood and Antonov's fingerprints," Elena finished. "Vincent, even if we stay and fight, what do we win? More violence. More death. Isabella almost died tonight because of this life. So we just give up? Let Dante win." "We let ourselves win." Elena crossed to him, taking his hands. "We choose to live instead of survive. We choose each other instead of revenge." Vincent's jaw clenched. "You make it sound simple." "It's the hardest thing I've ever done." Elena's voice cracked. 7 years I've been running, fighting, hiding. I'm tired, Vincent. I want to wake up without checking for exits. I want to have coffee without scanning for threats. I want. She took a shaky breath. I want a life with you. The words hung in the air between them. Comment below. Should they run or fight? Your choice matters. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button. Vincent pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like a promise. Morrison took everything from you. Your innocence, your trust, 7 years of your life. And I'm asking you to walk away from the chance to make his legacy pay. His legacy is already destroyed. Dante made sure of that. Elena looked up at him. But we are still here. Still breathing. Still have a choice. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then, Isabella's always wanted to move to the coast. Open a restaurant. Something simple, normal. That sounds perfect. And you? What do you want? Elena smiled, genuine and free for the first time in years. I want to be someone other than a weapon. I want to be Elena Harker, the real one, not the cover identity. She touched his face. And I want to see who Vincent Corleone becomes when he's not playing the role everyone expects. That could be boring. I'm willing to risk it. Vincent kissed her, soft this time, tender, full of possibility instead of desperation. When they broke apart, he pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Calling Dante. Accepting his deal. Vincent's smile was bittersweet. And then we are going to disappear so completely that even ghosts couldn't find us. Elena's heart soared even as tears pricked her eyes. They were giving up everything. Power, revenge, the only lives they'd ever known. But they were choosing each other. And somehow, that made it worth it. They had 6 hours before Dante's deadline when everything went wrong. Elena was packing their essentials, fake passports, cash, the bare minimum needed to vanish, when Vincent's phone rang. Not his regular phone. The encrypted one he used for emergencies. He answered, and Elena watched his face transform from calm to fury in seconds. What do you mean she's gone? Vincent's voice was dangerously quiet. I have people watching her hospital room. Elena's stomach dropped. Isabella. Vincent listened, his jaw clenching tighter with each word. Then he threw the phone across the room, shattering it against the wall. Antonov has her, he said flatly. His men walked into her room an hour ago, killed both guards, and took her. But Morrison's dead. Antonov got what he wanted. Apparently not. Vincent pulled weapons from a hidden safe. Antonov wants me. He's using Isabella as bait. Says if I don't come to the old Bellissimo restaurant, where this all started, he'll kill her slowly. Elena grabbed his arm. Vincent, it's suicide. Even if we save Isabella, Dante's deadline doesn't matter anymore. His eyes were cold, resolved. I'm not losing her again. Not for anything. Then we do this smart. Elena started formulating a plan. Antonov expects you broken, desperate. We use that. 40 minutes later, they stood outside Bellissimo. The restaurant was dark, abandoned since the night Elena's cover was blown, a lifetime ago, though it had only been days. Last chance to walk away, Vincent said. Elena chambered around. We walk away together or not at all. They entered through the kitchen, Elena's old domain. The dining hall beyond was lit by candles, casting dancing shadows across abandoned tables. Antonov sat at Vincent's usual table, Isabella bound to a chair beside him. His men, at least 8 Elena could see, positioned around the room. Vincent Corleone, Antonov's Russian accent was thick with mockery. Finally, you come crawling. Let her go, Dmitri. Your fight is with me. True. Antonov stood, walking slowly toward Isabella. But where is fun in that? You took something from me, my partnership with Morrison, my chance to control this city. So I take something from you. He pulled a gun, pressed it to Isabella's temple. Elena's training screamed to her, impossible odds, no clear shot, too many variables. But then she remembered something Morrison once taught her. When you can't win by the rules, change the game. Antonov. Elena stepped into the light. I have something you want more than revenge. The Russian's eyes narrowed. The spy girl. What could you possibly offer? Morrison's entire network. Every dirty cop, every corrupt judge, every politician on his payroll. Elena held up a flash drive, one she'd prepared before they left. Names, dates, bank accounts. Enough to own this city completely. You're lying. Am I? Morrison taught me to always have leverage. This is mine. She took a step forward. Trade. The drive for Isabella. Antonov studied her, calculating. Then he smiled. No. I think I take both. Kill them. His men raised their weapons. That's when the lights went out. Elena and Vincent had planned for this. She'd cut the main power 30 minutes ago, set on a timer. Now the room plunged into darkness, and Elena moved on pure instinct. She'd memorized every position, every angle. Her first shot took out the candles on Antonov's table. Her second dropped the guard nearest Isabella. Muzzle flashes erupted like lightning. Vincent was moving too, his shots precise and devastating. Men screamed, fell, died. Elena reached Isabella, cutting her bonds. Can you run? Watch me, Isabella gasped. They moved toward the kitchen exit, but Antonov blocked their path, weapon raised. You think you've won, he snarled. I have 50 men surrounding this building. The sound of sirens cut him off. Then spotlights blazed through the windows, and a voice boomed through a megaphone. This is the FBI. The building is surrounded. Elena smiled. Surprise. That flash drive? I sent copies to every federal agency an hour ago. Morrison's entire operation, including his partnership with you, Dmitri. You're done. Antonov's face twisted with rage, and he swung his weapon toward Isabella. Vincent's shot was faster. Antonov fell, and the restaurant erupted with the sound of federal agents breaching every entrance. Go! Vincent shoved Elena and Isabella toward the kitchen. There's still a chance. But Elena grabbed his hand. No more running. Not from this. They'll arrest us. Everything we planned was never going to work anyway. Elena smiled, tears streaming down her face. But we tried. We chose each other. That's what matters. Federal agents poured into the dining hall, and Elena Harker stood beside Vincent Corleone, their hands clasped, waiting for whatever came next. Together. Are you crying yet? Comment #together forever if this got you. One more part to go. Subscribe so you don't miss the ending. 6 months later. The coastal town of Monterey had never seemed more beautiful. Elena stood on the deck of the small restaurant, watching waves crash against the rocks below. The morning sun painted everything gold, and the smell of fresh coffee mixed with salt air. Table 4 wants to know if we have more of those blueberry scones, Isabella called from inside, her voice bright and healthy, a miracle Elena never took for granted. Tell them 5 minutes. Elena called back, smiling. She still couldn't believe it sometimes. That she was here, alive, free. That the federal investigation had cleared both her and Vincent after she'd testified against Morrison's entire network. That Dante had kept his word and destroyed the remaining evidence in exchange for their cooperation. That she'd walked out of that restaurant 6 months ago holding Vincent's hand, and hadn't let go since. The back door opened, and Vincent emerged carrying supplies, flour dusting his dark hair. He looked different now, softer somehow, the hard edges worn smooth by honest work and peaceful nights. Isabella's on a power trip, he said, setting down the bags. She's ordering me around like I'm a line cook. You are a line cook, Elena pointed out. I used to run an empire. And now you make excellent risotto. Life's funny that way. Elena kissed him, tasting coffee and contentment. He pulled her close. Any regrets? About choosing blueberry scones over weapons deals? Never. I'm serious. Elena looked into his grey eyes, the same eyes that had once seemed so dangerous, now just familiar and home. I spent 7 years being someone I wasn't. Living for revenge, for duty, for everyone except myself. She touched his face. Now I wake up next to you. I help your sister run a restaurant. I'm learning to paint, terribly. I'm just Elena, the real one. She smiled. No regrets. Vincent's answering smile was everything. Good. Because I'm about to make your life more complicated. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Elena's breath caught. Vincent. I know we said no more big gestures. No drama. Just simple and normal. He opened the box, revealing a simple silver band. But I can't be normal about you, Elena Harker. I tried. Can't do it. We've known each other 6 months, Elena said, but she was already crying. I've known you my entire life. I was just waiting for you to show up. Vincent took her hand. Marry me. Not because it's sensible or because we need to seal some alliance. Marry me because I love you. Because you make blueberry scones and terrible paintings and you're the bravest person I've ever met. Elena laughed through her tears. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's the only proposal you've ever heard. Fair point. She held out her hand. Yes. Obviously yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her as the morning sun climbed higher and the ocean sang and Isabella's voice drifted out from the restaurant demanding to know where those scones were. That evening, after the restaurant closed, Elena sat on the deck with Vincent and Isabella, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. I got a letter today, Isabella said quietly. From Dante. Vincent tensed, but Elena squeezed his hand. What did it say? Elena asked. That he's sorry. That he's using Morrison's money to fund refugee programs, children's hospitals, the kinds of things. Isabella's voice caught. The kinds of things our brother would have done if he'd had the chance. Dante's trying to atone, Vincent said slowly. Aren't we all? Elena murmured. They sat in comfortable silence, 3 people who'd survived the darkness and chosen the light. 3 people who'd been broken by violence and remade by love. If this story touched your heart, drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You're part of this journey, and I want you here for every story we create together. Thank you for watching, for caring, for being here. Until next time, remember, it's never too late to choose love over revenge, hope over despair, and life over survival. Elena looked at her ring, catching the last rays of sunlight. She thought about her father, about Morrison, about all the choices that had led her to this moment. And she realized something profound. She'd spent 7 years trying to avenge her father's death. But sitting here, with Vincent's arm around her and Isabella's laughter filling the air and a future stretching bright and uncertain before them, this was how she truly honored his memory. By living. Not as a weapon. Not as a ghost. But as Elena Harker. The waitress who became a spy who became a woman who chose love. And discovered that choosing love was the bravest thing she'd ever done. Vincent kissed her temple. What are you thinking about? Elena smiled, watching the sun sink into the ocean. Happy endings, she said. And how they're really just happy beginnings in disguise. Philosophical, Vincent teased. I'm a woman of depth now. I make scones and everything. Isabella groaned. You two are disgustingly cute. You love it, Elena and Vincent said simultaneously. And Isabella smiled, bright and genuine and alive, and said, yeah, I really do. The sun set completely, leaving them in the gentle darkness of a peaceful evening. Somewhere in the world, there were still monsters and violence and people playing deadly games. But here, in this small restaurant by the sea, 3 survivors had found something infinitely more powerful than revenge or power or fear. They'd found family. They'd found peace. They'd found home.